I finished my beer, set the mug down on the bar, and gestured to the bartender for another. He hesitated for a moment, but then busied himself reaching for a glass. The place was dimly lit. Soft lamps above the bar cast patches of light on the worn wooden counter. I came here to breathe out, to shed the weight of the past few months. Work was rough, or rather everything was as usual, but the usual tasks felt harder with every passing day. I felt like I was drowning in routine and loneliness. That loneliness squeezed my chest like a boa constrictor, especially in the evenings, when I'd return to my empty apartment, knowing tomorrow would be a repeat. I needed a breath of fresh air, something new to lift my spirits and make me taste life again. Besides me, 2 others sat at the bar, a bald man in a rumpled white shirt with a ketchup stain on his chest, drinking quietly, staring into his glass as if searching for answers there. Drunk as hell, or just pretending. The other was young, skinny, wearing glasses, like a college student. His backpack lay at his feet, and he was buried in his phone, not looking up. Good. At the back of the room, a group of men made noise around a table. Laughter, clinking glasses, and 2 women sat apart from the rest. A brunette in a bold red dress with long hair, and a blonde with a short haircut. I know some might find it strange, but I was drawn to the blonde from the first glance. Wide jeans, a cropped top, light hair falling over her face as she scrolled through her phone. Suddenly, she giggled quietly, and I felt something click inside me. This was my chance. I imagined us chatting and laughing, her greeting me after work, us spending time together. We would look perfect together. My heart started pounding faster. I tightened my t-shirt, took a swig of beer for courage, and walked over to her confidently. Getting closer, I saw her eyes were bright green, and I go crazy for eyes like that. It felt like winning the lottery. She was perfect. Good evening. Are you here alone? She looked up at me, and her lips stretched into a wide, playful smile. I'm used to that. Girls often take a liking to me. It's not bragging, just how things turned out. I got my blue eyes from my parents, neat facial features, and a fit body. That's from my gym work. Hours of sweat and iron. No pickup courses. No psychology. You just approach, say something. And if a girl's alone, she almost always answers. Just like now. The blonde tilted her head, studying me, and held out her hand. Yes. Would you like to join me? Everything went as it should, even better than I expected. My heart was pounding, but not from nerves, from anticipation. This was my night. Yeah, I'd like to buy you a drink. What are you having? I asked, leaning on the back of my chair to seem relaxed. A cosmopolitan, please, she replied, smiling again. Her hair shifted slightly, falling across her cheek. I nodded. But then I suddenly noticed something was wrong. The voices at the next table, the same guys who'd been loud all evening, fell silent as if someone had flipped a switch. I glanced over. One of them, a man with a square jaw, seemed to look my way, but quickly turned his head. My palms started to sweat a little, but I pushed down the unease. It's all good, I said to the blonde, trying to stay calm, then made my way to the bar. The bartender's behavior was odd. Every time I met his eyes, he quickly looked away. Not sure if I was making him uncomfortable or if something else was going on. I murmured my order, a cosmopolitan for her, and a pilsner for myself. While the bartender fiddled with the shaker, I scanned the room. The men at the table had resumed their conversation, but something was off. One in a grey sweater kept sneaking glances at me, hiding behind his bottle. Another with a beard was scribbling in a notebook, covering it with his hand. No, not again. My heart started pounding faster. Maybe I was paranoid. No, I recognized them, those eyes, their movements, too familiar. And the bartender seemed to be in on it too. I had to get out of there right now. It was a shame about the blonde, but there would be others, definitely. I asked the bartender for the check. He hesitated, mumbling that the cocktail wasn't ready yet. The shaker clinked in his hands like he was stalling. Irritation boiled inside of me. "Just ring me up already!" I snapped, louder than intended. The bar fell silent. The bald drunk froze with his glass. The student looked up from his phone. The guys at the table all lifted their heads. Their eyes pinned me like needles. Oh, damn. I clenched my teeth and felt sweat bead on my temples. Without looking him in the eye, the bartender shoved the check toward me. I threw some bills on the counter and dashed for the door, feeling those eyes on me all the way. The last thing I saw before the heavy door slammed behind me were the surprised green eyes of the blonde, the one whose name I never got. Outside, the cold, sobering air hit my cheeks. I glanced back at the bar. Empty. Only the neon sign flickered red, buzzing quietly. But that meant nothing. They could be smarter, hiding in the shadows of alleyways, waiting for me to let my guard down. I shoved my hands into my jeans pockets and walked briskly, not running to avoid drawing attention. I turned onto a narrow street, squeezed between old buildings, where everything lay out in the open. It's usually empty. If someone followed me, I'd see. And if things got dangerous, there was a path through maze-like backyards, trash bins, and rusty garages where I could disappear. I ducked into the turn. The echo of footsteps beat on the pavement like a shadow stalking me, just a bit behind. My heart raced and my throat dried up. I spun around sharply. No one, just a woman with a black umbrella standing by a storefront window, looking at a dress on a mannequin. I exhaled, feeling the cold air scratch my throat. Maybe it was just my imagination acting up. The street stretched empty, only light from sparse street lamps reflected in puddles on the sidewalk, and a dog barked somewhere distant. No suspicious shadows, no footsteps. I relaxed, shoulders dropped, fists unclenched. Guess I overreacted and ran from the bar for nothing. I could be sitting with that blonde now, chatting about nonsense, laughing, looking into her green eyes. Maybe I'd have offered to walk her home. I pictured her adjusting her hair, smiling across the table. But out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A dark figure in a coat stepped out from an alley across the street. Her silhouette flickered under the dull street lamp. Coincidence. That familiar itch flared in my chest, like a stranger's gaze probing beneath my skin, searching for weaknesses. My heart pounded again. Adrenaline rushed through my fingers. Calm down, I thought, clutching my face in my pockets. Don't panic. Just don't panic. First, I need to be sure it's them. They started following me months ago. Before that, I lived a simple life, carefree. I wasn't expecting trouble, but then their eyes appeared, clingy, piercing, their faces watching from crowds. Sometimes they disappeared for a week or two. Then I could breathe, live like before, enjoy simple pleasures, be glad I wasn't under their watch. But lately they were everywhere. I couldn't leave for coffee without feeling their eyes tracking me, shadows sneaking behind. God, why won't they leave me alone? I just want to live my simple life. Is that too much to ask? So I did a simple test. I went to a crosswalk, where the green light flashed, counting down the last seconds. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to wait. At 3 seconds left, I bolted. Cars already ready to go honked their horns. Someone shouted profanity from a window. I heard footsteps behind me, fast and heavy. I looked back. A man in a black coat was running after me, just a few steps behind. His face hidden under a hood, but I felt his gaze like a burn. That confirmed it. This time they were close. All right, stay calm, I thought, clenching my fists. No taxis this time. Last time almost got me. Stick to the plan. Let him think he knows my moves. But I hold all the aces. The man in the coat kept pace. His footsteps pounded behind me. I sped up, almost breaking into a run. Okay, I needed building 57, second entrance. The door was open. Lucky. Or maybe a trap. Inside smelled damp and stale tobacco smoke. Walls marked with graffiti. My sneakers echoed on concrete floors, mixing with the pounding in my ears. Slamming the door behind me, I ran down the hallway to a back exit and slipped into a dark courtyard piled with trash. I knew this place like the back of my hand, unlike them. Let's see if he can catch me here. I sprinted ahead, turned right behind a garage, glanced back. Empty. The man in the coat was gone, but a shadow flickered in a first-floor window. The curtain twitched. They watched through windows, like hunting hands sweating. No time to think. I darted through the maze of yards, weaving around trash bins, emitting rotten smells. The footsteps came and went. Echo played with me like a cat teasing a mouse, making my heart beat faster. Finally, I burst onto the bustling avenue, where crowds moved on with their own business. I blended into the flow, trying to breathe steady, hide among unfamiliar backs, disappear in the buzzing human sea. About 100 meters ahead, a huge supermarket sign glowed yellow, spilling light onto the sidewalk. Perfect place to lose myself. I quickened my pace and slipped inside, where fluorescent lights hummed, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery lingered. To avoid standing out, I grabbed a shopping cart, pushing it like a regular customer. I tossed in a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, a bag of chips, a soda bottle. In the hardware aisle, my eyes caught a hammer on the shelf, heavy with a black handle. I weighed it in my hand, feeling the cold metal. Not bad. Maybe I'd grab it, but then spotted a row of camping axes. Now that's better. I snatched a hefty one with a rubber handle. The blade shone sharp and reliable. I turned it over, feeling my fingers grip the handle tight. They've forced me, I thought, gritting my teeth. If they come too close, I'll have to do what's necessary to protect myself. I can't let them ruin everything I've built. I nodded to myself and tossed the axe in the cart. When it was my turn, I noticed the cashier, a woman with a tired face and bright lipstick, gave me a strange look, as if sizing me up. My heart jumped. I murmured an apology, saying I forgot something, then headed to another register farther away. I knew they could be anywhere, pretending to be anyone. Cashiers, drivers, even neighbors. They were everywhere. I could spot them from regular folks, always smiling to make you relax, asking pointless questions. Everything designed to get you to say yes, to trust, to open up. Their tentacles reached everywhere, so I had to stay alert. It was a matter of life and death. I checked out, paid cash as always. The bag with chips, soda, bread, and the axe pulled on my arm. Plastic crinkled with every step. Only a 20-minute walk home. But I froze when I spotted a car with tinted windows parked by the curb. The engine hummed quietly, headlights off. Inside, figures shifted, vague and barely visible in the dark. Damn, I was sure I had lost them. How did they find me? Cameras, bugs. I had to think fast. I moved toward the subway, walking evenly so as not to stand out, though my neck burned from the feeling of eyes on me. I rode down the escalator, weaving through the few people around. The platform was half empty. A couple of students chatted near a column, backpacks behind them, one blue, one green. Cool shades. Nothing suspicious. A woman with bulging shopping bags. Near the station was a market. A man in a worn suit with his tie, crooked, stared into his phone, standing at the platform edge. The train arrived. I stepped in and stared into a black window, reflecting the dim lights and passenger faces. In the reflection, I spotted the man in the suit entering the next car. His gaze slid over me, sharp and assessing, as if he already knew everything I was trying to hide. They were everywhere, I thought, clutching the bag, intruding on my life, forcing me to hide. If they caught me, it would be over. I'd have to cut all ties to keep them away from the most important things. At the next station, I bolted out, squeezed through the crowd, ignoring complaining mutters, and jumped on another line. Rode a couple of stops in the opposite direction, then switched again. My heart pounded, sweat dripping down my temples, but I kept telling myself, I'll throw them off. I won't be tracked. They're not as smart as they think. My fingers found the axe in the bag. The rubber handle fit like a glove, and if it came to it, well, I had the axe, and I'd use it if I had to. I reached my building and stopped suddenly, as if I'd run into an invisible wall. On the bench near the entrance sat a man with a dog. A pug, with bulging eyes, panting like an old steam engine. There were no pugs like that in our building. I knew all the neighbours, the old lady on the 3rd floor, the guy on the 5th who blasted rap music. More than that, I kept track of which apartments were rented out and carefully watched the comings and goings. I would have remembered that pug. I swallowed nervously. Shelter. That was the only safe place now. Without looking back, I turned and headed toward an unfinished building off to the side. A grey skeleton of concrete and rebar, abandoned for years. I loved that place. It was quiet there, no random passers-by, just the wind whistling through empty windows, and no one poking into my thoughts. My best ideas came to me exactly there. Plus, it was the safest route to my hideout. I found the familiar spot where the fence mesh hung loose. I pushed it aside, slipping through, snagging my elbow on the rusty edge, and stepped onto the construction site. I planned to cross right through and exit the other side, as I had done hundreds of times. It was always dark and empty there. Meeting anyone in that place was impossible. I knew that because I walked that way almost every day. But suddenly, close by, about 50 yards ahead, I spotted a figure. A guy in a black Q jacket. His eyes darted around, as if searching or looking for me. They had gotten to me even here. Soon they'd figure out all my secret paths, all my moves. Then it would be over. My pulse hammered at my temples, my hands trembled. I didn't know what to do, and frankly, I'm not sure what came over me, but my nerves snapped completely. I stepped forward and shouted, voice cracking, "Hey, what are you doing here? Get out!" The guy spun his head like he didn't understand if I was talking to him, playing dumb. I shoved my hand into the bag, pulled out the axe, and took a step toward him. He stammered, "I lost my dog. She ran away here and I'm looking for her." "Hey, I don't want any trouble," I said, stepping closer, raising the axe over my head. The guy ran off without looking back. Okay, dealt with that, but a sharp pain stung my chest. They had gotten way too close. Too close. Looks like I'll have to act. Though the time wasn't right yet, I just needed to get to my shelter. There, everything would be fine. I went out the other side of the unfinished building and found myself by a row of abandoned garages. Rusty locks, peeling paint. They hadn't been used for years. I had only seen the owner of one garage a couple of times, a very old man who talked too much. That was about a year ago. He hadn't appeared since, and I was the only one lurking around. The garage had belonged to my dad, and I'd converted it for my own needs. I opened the creaky door, stepped inside, and set my bag down on a shaky wooden table. I pulled out the axe. I bent down, pushed aside a few floorboards, opened a hatch and turned on my flashlight. Its beam caught a narrow staircase leading down into the darkness. I stepped carefully down, feeling a mixture of excitement and frustration growing inside me. I hadn't planned any of this today, but the surveillance, the shadows, the stairs, they forced my hand. Things were speeding up, changing the game, making me act before the time was right. Maybe fuel would be needed. The stairs creaked beneath my feet. The smell of damp and mold filled my nostrils. From below, I heard a sound, like a bird flapping its wings desperately. I flicked the switch. The dim light bulb flickered, casting a yellowish glow over the basement before blinking out. Short, sweaty blonde hair clung to her face. My beauty. She was huddled in a corner. Handcuffs clinked as they bit deeper into her wrists. The skin underneath had reddened. From beneath a gag, a muffled groan escaped. "Hush," I whispered, stepping closer. "It's almost over." I set the axe on a metal table against the wall, turned around and grabbed a roll of plastic wrap from the corner where I kept my things. "I hoped we could get to know each other better," I said, looking at her. "But they're watching, sweetheart." "Sorry, this is our last dance. Then you'll disappear like you were never here." She tried to scream again, but the gag muffled her cries into a pitiful wheeze. Tears streamed down her bright green eyes, leaving wet trails on her cheeks. "I have to," I thought, unrolling the plastic. "They left me no choice. One strike and freedom. They won't find me. I knew what was coming next. The usual. Disassemble. Wrap into plastic. Carry out to a ditch behind the factory where no one goes. Erase traces, smells. Get rid of stains. Burn clothes in a barrel behind the garages. No one will connect me to this. No one will know. They won't find out." I prepared cleaning chemicals, rubber gloves, tools nearby, a circular saw, a meat knife, a couple of scalpels from my collection, which I'd been collecting for months. Everything was laid out systematically in order. First, the knives for precise work and souvenirs. Then the saw for bones. Finally, bleach to erase traces. I eyed the table, adjusted the saw so it lay parallel to the edge. Everything was ready. My hands trembled slightly, but I forced myself to calm down. This wasn't the first time. I went upstairs to the garage, boiled a kettle, brewed a cup of chamomile tea. I stepped outside into the night where wind rustled the leaves of trees. I don't remember when this ritual appeared. One day, I just did it before the first time, and since then, I repeated it. Something about these minutes of silence calmed me. Just me, a cup in my hands, and her below. She still didn't know what awaited her. Warm steam rose to my face, but this time something felt off. Uneasy, my hands grew cold. The wind seemed too sharp. I didn't finish my tea. I poured the rest onto the ground. The tea spread into a dark puddle. I went back inside, locked the door, and went down. It was time. She groaned through the gag. Tears streamed down her cheeks, leaving wet trails on her dirty skin. Her body trembled. The handcuffs clinked with every movement. I slowly approached the table, took the axe, walked over to her, stroked her light hair, leaned down, and kissed the top of her head goodbye. I raised the axe, sizing up. The blade gleamed in the dim lamplight. Her eyes begged in pure terror, but I knew there was no choice. I took a deep breath, muscles tensed, and the crunch of the door upstairs shattered the silence like a gunshot. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Flashlight beams danced on the walls, casting long shadows. "Police! Everyone, stay where you are!" A commanding voice barked. The axe trembled in my hand. They had found me after all. I thought I could get away, but they were already here. Their gazes had burnt into the back of my neck for months. The steps had echoed behind me everywhere I went. They sniffed me out like dogs on a trail. I thought I was smarter, that I could lose them in the maze of backyards, hide and wipe away every trace. But they knew. Their shadows flickered in alleyways. Radios whispered in the dark. Cars with tinted windows waited around corners, and now they were here. In my sanctuary, the garage, where I felt safest and controlled everything. My world, my rules, shattered. The axe slipped from my fingers. Seconds later, they threw me to the floor. My cheek crushed into the cold, rough concrete. My arms were twisted behind my back. The handcuffs clicked tight, biting into my wrists so hard that I clenched my teeth against the pain. Skin burned under the metal. I saw them take my beauty. 2 officers removed the cuffs. She cried and staggered away, not even glancing back. I begged her silently to turn, to meet my eyes, to give me one last chance to see those green eyes. But she left, and it was over. Dusty boots stomped around. Boxes clattered, tools clanged. They rifled through everything I had built. Someone picked up my new axe. The rubber handle flashed in the flashlight beams before it was shoved into a plastic bag. I turned away. Sweat ran down my back, sticky and cold. Voices buzzed overhead like a swarm. If that guy hadn't called, we'd have been looking for him much longer. The kid just lost his dog, can you believe it? And some psycho with an axe charged at him. If only I'd walked by, no one would have noticed. My freedom, my secrets, my rituals, they all crumbled before my eyes. They dragged me outside. The night squeezed my throat with cold. The air smelled of wet earth and gasoline. Several cars waited near the garage. Flashing lights cut through the darkness in blue and red, sharp as knives. They shoved me into one of them. The door slammed shut with a dull thud, cutting me off from the world. They got me after all. If you enjoyed the story, you can support the channel by liking and subscribing. See you next time.